This video is all about varietals and our partner producer Pillcocaja in Ecuador. Welcome, my name is Patrick Rolf and this is Coffee with April. For this video, we're gonna deep dive into the most important thing, especially coffee, and that's the coffee varietal. We know that on this channel, whenever we do farm content or varietal content or whatever it might be, you guys are less interested. And we find this a little bit interesting because as coffee brewers, whether you're professional or home brewer, we need to respect, understand, and learn more about what is happening at origin. Because in the end of the day, that is the most important thing of what you do. I'm gonna say that the majority of what you're tasting at home when you're brewing that coffee is that varietal, is the work that goes into that farm, right? So bear with us, give us a little bit of time, and we're gonna tell you some more about it. In this specific video, we're gonna focus a little bit more on Pillcocaja, which is our partner farm in Ecuador that we visited earlier in the season. And we just wanna walk through what are the varietals that we're purchasing, why are we purchasing it the way that we want to, and then just show you a little bit of clips from that farm specifically, right? So for those of you that maybe saw my World Barista Championship presentation in Melbourne, you know that it was kind of situated around the importance of varietal. And we can't really talk about varietal and local terroir unless we also talk about processing. So one of the key things with that presentations and what we want to kind of convey here at April is that processing is interesting, varietal and terroir is a lot more interesting, right? So basically processing is something that we use to add a way to kind of enhance that varietal without taking away from the original characters, right? So we want that flavor transparency that comes from that. The reason why we travel to different producers and farms around the world and spend a lot of time trading that coffee direct is because we want to feature the specific taste that you can get from that specific farm, varietal, and terroir, right? So the kind of trend with processing now, which makes a lot of flavors in coffee very much generic, is completely uninterested here. The word infused coffees is nothing you will ever see on an offer list from April. That's kind of complete bullshit, to be fair, right? But on a positive note, varietals, and specifically what we're trading from Pillcocaja. And I think it's an interesting example because here we're buying coffees of different processing methods. So we're buying some anaerobic processed coffees. It's not that we're against that as a concept. And these guys are actually, Ana Maria and Nicolas, is a great example of how you do that in a way that just enhances and elevates the taste experience without detracting from that specific varietal, right? So this year, we're basically focusing on the same varietals that we purchased last year. So we're buying their Typica varietal, which is one of our absolute favorites. It's famous for its kind of florality, a lot of melon notes, a little bit of a stone fruit character in general. Really has a lot of florality, which makes it so interesting, right? And this coffee we traditionally buy in both a washed and an anaerobic version. And it's interesting when you cup these side by side because they have a lot of the similar traits. The only thing that anaerobic fermentation adds in this case is just a little bit more fruit forward qualities, right? But it doesn't in any way kind of take away from those beautiful original kind of notes from that Typica, right? Another varietal we're buying, which we've been buying since the very first season, is their Ethiopian varietal. You guys know by now that we are really interested in any varietal that is originally from Africa, planted in different parts of Central and South America. Something with that combination that really works and it comes out tasting very, very good. Super floral, very red, a little bit plummy, everything we're kind of looking for in a coffee. This coffee is going to be processed as red honey, which is one of the kind of standard processes that they're using. It's one of their favorite ways of processing as well. You see that across South and Central America a lot, that people really actually appreciate those kind of red honey processes, right? So that's also part of what we're trying to do is to really shine a light on what does this farm like? Like every producer has their favorite processing method, right? And again, we're purchasing from these producers because we want to showcase their work. April is not coming to a farm saying process like this. That's not how we do it. We're saying, how do you like to process coffees? What are the varietals that you're working with and how are they tasting? And then if we can find them compatible with what we're looking for, then that's kind of what we're moving into as our next step, right? So we're not there to dictate how anyone is doing anything. We're just there to find producers that has the same kind of perspective on coffee quality as we do. Now, one of our favorite varietals from them, and unfortunately that's something they produce very little of, is their Pacamara varietal. Recently, we spent a lot more time with Pacamara varietals at April, and we find them really interesting. And if you find the good ones, they're super floral, that has a lot of kind of complex fruit notes, and you can stay away from this kind of oniony, herbaceous vibe that you find in a lot of them. The Pacamara is an interesting example because this is actually what they call an anaerobic or lactic fermentation. So it's by far the coffee that has a little bit more processing to it in terms of being anaerobic. But in this case, again, we find this beautiful kind of balance of quality of the varietal and quality of the processing, right? Going through Melbourne, the coffee scene there, what's kind of interesting is that you have a lot of coffees that are really just processing forward. And the varietal is here. Like I tried some cups of some beautiful varietals that I couldn't even taste in the cups, right? And I think what we have here from Pillcocaja is a really great example of when those just kind of marry perfectly together, and the result you're having coming through is even tastier, right? Now, naturally, it's difficult to work with a varietal-driven coffee because if you do that, it puts a lot of demand on the processing, sorting, and the varietal trees itself, right? So basically the maintenance of the farm. That's why, for example, we work continuously with the partner producers we have, because that way we can ensure that the practices at the farm is on a high enough standard to deliver those beautiful clean coffees that kind of taste fantastic year in and year out. Part of the trend with the processing that we have now, when it's basically the processing is what we're tasting, it's basically allowing buyers and producers in a way to sell lesser good coffee, because that added processing is giving a lot more character to it, right? Something that we're going to stay away from here at April. But again, this video was just a little bit of a showcase of the varietals that are coming up from our partner farm in Ecuador. We're super happy to work with them. It's really kind of them to kind of allow us to buy their coffee. And we're looking forward to an early 2023 release, so sometimes around February. So stay tuned. We're going to have more content from the farm, from the producers as well. And we know you guys don't really like it, but we just don't understand why, right? Again, farmers is really important. That's the very foundation of what we do, right? So, please educate yourself. Spend a little bit of time watching these videos because they do make a massive difference. And in the end, it's the very foundation of the industry. With that, we want to thank you all for watching. As usual, we're taking this conversation over to Patreon. So if you have more in-depth kind of questions, you're more than welcome to run them through there, right? So thank you for watching and have a good day. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.